how excited we are to have you all here today for what's going to be a really, really special conversation. For those of you who don't know who Blacfox is, we have worked closely with Microsoft and its partner community for close to a decade now, helping partners grow, go to market more effectively, and navigate the constant changes that come with being part of this community. And honestly, that's really what inspired today's session. The pace of change inside Microsoft has been incredible, exciting, but as I'm sure a lot of you will agree, a little bit challenging. We've seen how it's reshaping how people lead, how teams adapt, and how businesses grow. And you know, we took a step back and we thought, what better way to explore that than through a conversation with someone who's actually lived it from every angle. Orlando Ayala has been a vital part of Microsoft's story. He's worked directly with Bill Gates on the senior leadership team. He's helped build Microsoft's presence across Latin America and the Southern Hemisphere. He later ran the global field organization and eventually became the chairman of emerging markets, working with governments and industries across the world to drive digital transformation and inclusion. Orlando is truly someone who's led through times of major change. And today's conversation is about unpacking what it really takes, not from theory, but from actual experience. Leading the conversation today is Karushan Govender. I'm sure you all know who he is, CEO of Blacfox. Karushan has spent over 2 decades working across the Microsoft ecosystem, from his early days inside of Microsoft itself, to now helping partners across the world unlock new ways to grow. Together, they're going to take us through a very candid, no slides, no fluff discussion about leadership, change, and what it means to stay ahead in the shifting ecosystem. So I'll keep it short. Thank you again for being here and being part of this community. I'd love to connect with each one of you after this, and I hope you enjoy the session. So with that, please join me in welcoming to the stage Orlando Ayala and Karushan Govender.
Thank you so much, very well done.
Hello, good morning. Afternoon, yeah. It's morning in Seattle, very early, by the way. It's about 2 here, plus 2 is 4 a.m. in Seattle.
Wow, wow. Well, let's see how you go, because so far you've been proving that that the Microsoft travel DNA has not left you yet.
It's still around, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good, that's good. So, hi everyone, welcome. Very excited about this conversation. Let's get right into it. So let's start, Orlando. I mean, I got a head start last night. He and I got to chat quite a bit at dinner. And I got some of the inside scoop already. So I know for a fact you're going to be very entertained by some of the stories that he's going to share with us today. So let's open with something very, let's go all the way back to the start. How is it that you wound up at Microsoft?
Well, I have been in the industry for 40 years. And I'm originally from Colombia, South America. But I left the country in 1985. I was transferred by NCR. I don't know how many of you know what a company is. They do ATMs these days, I guess. And I stayed with them for 10 years. And then in late 1990, I got a call from someone from a small company called Microsoft. And then 25 years later, I basically left the company in 2016 and had the opportunity to lead some very interesting times through the history of the company, which has been challenged at times, many times, and of course engaging this type of community, which for Microsoft has been really essential as part of the design of how to engage country ecosystems and help really and empowering people using their software.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to also just remark from my vantage point, I mean, seeing the turnout today, seeing how excited everyone was to be here today with us, I just think that speaks to the power of this Microsoft ecosystem, huh? I mean, Eric, when he walked in, we realized that we worked together 22 years ago. And here we are, and all these years, and it's like we barnacles attached to a ship. We just won't go anywhere. You know, 22 years later, we're still fighting the good fight. You know, it's quite a thing. All right, so Orlando, the theme of today is all about leading through the Microsoft shift. Obviously, we've got some big shifts that have happened, and we've got a very big shift that we are almost right in the middle of. So now, let's go back to a bit of a personal story. Let's talk Windows 95. Okay?
Yeah.
So you shared quite a nice story with me last night about what occurred when you went out and you spoke to customers, and then also what happened inside the company. So just to get the conversation going and to get the juices flowing, I think we should share that to everyone. Share that with everyone in the room.
Well, maybe I use the context of what, in the end, I hope is useful to talk about with all of you. And we're going to have Q&A later, and I would love to engage a little bit on what is in your mind. But I would start saying, before I go to the whole 95, which was an important time with the company, that the enemy is really within. That's my conclusion after 40 years in the industry, and it's within because companies are very challenged to recognize when change comes, and you have to do something radical to ensure that that change happens. It's not easy at all. I mean, I lived it, I would say, in a couple of times in the company. 95 was a very important time because it was the real big breakthrough for the company in terms of bringing a piece of software that truly was embraced by millions and millions around the world. I still remember, I think this subsidiary opened in 1993.
Yeah.
And my first time in South Africa was in 94. And then I took over the worldwide sales, marketing, and services of the company for a few years. So I got to come here, and I could see from the country perspective how interesting it was and how much opportunity was provided both ways for the partner ecosystem and to Microsoft on that engagement. It was so essential to develop these things. But again, I think it would be useful if in the end, because what is happening today is truly a change that many people is really scratching their heads on how to face it. It is pretty radical, and it was in the past in other opportunities. So again, 95, I'm not going to overstand myself on what happened, but clearly it was an opportunity where Microsoft built a business that was a real footprint for the world. On the many companies were part of that ecosystem, and it was very exciting. At that time, the company was a lot smaller. It was a lot easier to make decisions. I had the opportunity to open 35 of the company subsidiaries around the world. Many of the first meetings were in the main square of the city. There was an office, and all those times really were very interesting times where culture played, I would say, the pivotal role in making the company a successful company. And it was going to prove that through the next 25 years, it was really the questions about culture that were very hard to resolve within the company. And even today, I would say the relationship we have with partners for a long time is one that the company is asking themselves how that's going to evolve and how that should evolve, understanding that that ecosystem continues to be essential for the success of this company and many others. So I'm not going to overstand in 95. 95 was an important time for us, a time of business development and a very exciting time. But let's continue with the conversation. Hopefully we just engage in what I think is in all of us minds, and is how do we take advantage of this opportunity that is in front of us, this whole AI revolution, and how much that's putting pressure on everybody around the world.
Absolutely. So, obviously that was the launch of 95 was a groundbreaking time for Microsoft. If you look at Microsoft from then till now, it's gone through so many iterations, so many market challenges that it has successfully overcome. Microsoft has always risen to the occasion. Now, let's just for nostalgia's sake, let's talk about Steve Ballmer and his commitment to customer satisfaction and
Do they really know Steve Ballmer?
If anyone does not know Steve Ballmer, you're not welcome. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. So let's just dial it back a little bit for nostalgia's sake, and I think it's an important conversation to have, especially as we're seeing so much change continuing to occur, probably at greater proportions than ever before. Just to go back to some of the simpler days and how the commitment to the customer really saw the company through a lot.
Yeah, well, Steve was absolutely instrumental in how the company evolved with time. I had the luxury of working with him very closely for many years. Interesting man. Um, I could easily say it was always a love and hate relationship because Steve was a very passionate and hardcore guy, but very instrumental. And you know, it was really interesting to see how the company made an evolution after Windows 95 that we had this big success. And the reality is that there was a point where the company clearly reviewed Steve specifically. I was telling the team last night, I mean, Steve is probably the smartest person I've ever met. Capability of doing business models in his head, and pretty amazing. But he quickly realized that the selling of packages business model was going to die pretty quickly. And you know, that was a time where the company needed to make a transformation and said, okay, we have been selling these licenses mostly through retail or some OEMs, which used to bundle mainly Windows and later Office. And then he came to realize that the company needed a change. That change really saved the company, because if the company would have stayed in the business model that we had at that time, it would not have survived. So that's when the licensing thing came, in terms of agreements with customers and others that were more like a 3-year type of agreement. That transition was extremely painful. Many customers and many partners really struggled trying to understand that model. I guess many of you lived through the EA model and you know all these things that were sold to these long-term licenses. But the point to this, and going back to Steve, is that the company took an approach to it that, in my opinion, was challenging. It was challenging in a way to say, you're going to change, and this is the change, and you have to take it. That coincided basically with me taking over worldwide sales, marketing, and services for the company. At that time, now the company is like, I don't know, $200+ billion type company. I think now it's like close to $1 trillion in market value.
Yeah.
At that time, I was in charge of about $80 billion of revenue responsibility. But it was a very hard time where we were attacked, especially by the open source community. You probably all lived through the whole story about open source and Linux and all these things. And frankly enough, going back to the question of culture and what culture means, I think the company lost a little bit the way with respect to what was really happening in the field and how many of our customers felt in some ways challenged by all these changes in Microsoft not taking a more proactive approach. So we were sued. We were sued by the Department of Justice in the United States, which is not fun at all. And I was in charge again of facing customers and partners every day. And it was very tough. I mean, I went to these meetings and many of the customers were really rough. You know, really rough. They were just complaining and complaining with reason. In some weird way, the company, I think, was not really listening. It was not really listening, and that was really painful in a way that I got one morning. I woke up and I said, I cannot take this any longer. I cannot continue to go to South Africa and these places, meeting all these customers and in all these countries, just hearing how bad we're doing. So imagine in a company of that size, what do you do with that? I mean, I was in charge again, basically, of the revenue engine of Microsoft. So I had the responsibility to deliver the numbers every quarter, which, you know, in these big companies, this is a very kind of important thing, especially because if you don't do it, then the market is going to give you a pretty hard time. So the company used to do every year a retreat with all the executives, about 120 VPs, and this was a retreat where we got together to really discuss about how we move the company forward. Linux was pretty big at that time, so right in the middle of the agenda. Ballmer designed the agenda for 3 days. Remote place, the whole 120 VPs were moved there, and more or less the day went like, okay, Bill Gates started the session speaking about his vision of how our technology was going. Then the following hour was basically Steve Ballmer as CEO. He spoke of what was in his mind. The third hour on the first day was the sales and marketing guy. I happened to be that guy. So I was, of course, and I was just so fed up. And usually those sessions were like Jeff Rakes. I don't know how many of you met Jeff? I mean, I bet many of you met Jeff, which was my boss, and I replaced him when we moved to run office. And that, I was just so mortified in terms of how the culture side of the company, I was not reacting to this issue. I told my wife the night before, tomorrow I'm gonna get fired. I have to do this speech, and tomorrow I think I'm gonna get fired. But that's okay, I think I cannot live any longer with, carrying a flag that I'm not very convinced. And sure enough, Steve and Bill gave his speech, and in the center of all that was like Bill was being attacked by the DOJ and the whole community, and it was a real hard time. And then Steve spoke, and it was my turn. And I stood up, and my opening line of that standing up was, many of the last few days, I wake up and I raise from my bed and I feel ashamed of this company. So that was a little bit suicidal, yeah. And I think about it, and sometimes I say, will I do it again? I don't know. And of course, it was like a little bit of a shock in the room. We also in these meetings tend to see how people behave, and usually when you meet Bill Gates, he's listening, and usually he does this. And it's something that he does in every meeting for some weird reason. But I know when he does that, usually it's because he's either thinking hard about what you were saying, or he's really pissed off. And I'm sure he was not really thinking hard. He was really just moving, and I knew that he was really pissed. My speech lasted 20 minutes, but I really said what I needed to say. I said, we cannot move the company forward unless we really wake up and understand that customer satisfaction is really in the toilet, that our partners are really pissed, that we continue to call Linux a cancer, and that's bad. Nobody wants to hear that, right? And my speech, instead of being an hour, lasted just really like 20 minutes. I finished, and I got emotional. I was just really impacted by this situation. And what was weird, cultural-wise, is like as soon as I finished, the majority of the room stood up and applauded, which was a reaction I was not expecting, which meant a lot of the people were thinking what I was feeling, but nobody had the courage to stand up and say. And of course, right after that, there was a break, and then the break happened, and then Bill jumps from his chair, and excuse my French, but I'm just trying to represent exactly what he told me. And he came to me right on my face and said, why the fuck did you talk about the company this way? We're not bad people. And I told him, you know what? I don't have to talk to you about anything. Tell 120 people that stood up and applauded that I'm wrong. I'm the idiot. So Ballmer, in his very interesting moments of doing things, jumped in. I said, no, wait. Let's don't get too emotional here. And the break happened, and he came back, and I grant to him this. I have been critical of him many times over the things, but he came back and in front of everybody took the agenda for the 3 days and ripped it apart. Said, we are going to talk about this for the next 3 days. So that was. I'm just sharing this with you because I think we are living a time right now where companies need to think deeply about what is the cultural aspect of what's going on. It's not so much of, oh, AI is going to take all the jobs away and my job is going to go. The question is, what the heck are you going to do about it, right? The opportunity is there, the tools are going to be there. And that's really the question. And it goes more towards not so much what are going to do with this, but how am I prepared to take the opportunity forward? So as a result of that event, what happened, actually, Bill later came back and again, he could have said, who is this Colombian, just fire him, you know? And that was, I was just expecting him to do that. I was ready. But no, he came then later and said, hey, I want to understand more. So I give him all the credit for that because both of them, Steve and Bill, can easily have dismissed the whole thing and said this crazy Colombian went nuts. Anyway, but they did some very deep things to change the culture. Because what happened is then, I don't know, Jim Olchin, which was the person that drove Windows and all the VPs that run the products, they stood up and they actually said, yeah, we are taking this product halfway to market, and like everybody was like now in the same. So Vollmer moved basically compensation of all the VPs, all of them, 120. They hated me later, but they moved compensation to be 60% on customer and partner satisfaction. And then the company started to really do very profound things to try to re-engage with who was our life. It was the partners and it was really the customers.
Yeah.
Without them, there's no business.
Very interesting.
So I'm sorry I just extended a little bit on this conversation, but given what's happening right now, the opportunities in front of us, which are tremendous, really, I think it's a very important time to reflect about culture. And then from that point on, what does it mean in terms of the skills of our people? What does it mean in terms of getting prepared? What investments should I make, and so on, right?
That's awesome, and trust me, that was very valuable. And seeing as you just like name dropping the Bills and the Steves, all of your chums, let's talk about one of your other chums, Satya, who I bet the room doesn't know. I didn't know this is. He actually worked for you.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I finished being the head of sales, marketing, and services, the company got into the business of ERP and CRM. That was when we acquired Navision and Great Plains. So I don't know, maybe you know.
Of
Some
course.
of you may be partners of us on that. And I was basically asked to work on integrating the companies into Microsoft because there's nothing more dangerous than buying these technology companies. They come to this big monster inside and they get destroyed pretty quickly, right? Most companies, these big technology companies, are not very good at integrating new technology partners. So I was fully dedicated to do that. And at that time, the owner of Great Plains, Doug Burgum, I don't know,
Yeah.
which now is working for Trump. Anyway, that's a different conversation. He's in his cabinet now. And I worked very closely with Doug, and Doug was coming from the outside. He was the owner of Great Plains. So at that time, Steve decided to give an opportunity to the engineering team to come and learn the business. And that's when he basically appointed Satya to report to Doug and I as the technical lead for basically what at that time was building the CRM business, which was the very first thing that we did and he created in the new model of cloud, and it was really a development that was cloud native. So that's how Satya came to be part of the team, and of course now he's the CEO.
Well, could you tell in those earlier days that he would eventually lead the company?
No, I think, Satya was always an incredibly thoughtful man. And I'll tell you, now I'm going to go back to the cultural thing, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think if there's something to discuss today, is that question. I think the brilliance of Vollmer is undeniable. But as any good people, he also had blind spots. Like he was absolutely against opening the platform to open source. He was just so, there's no way we're gonna do that. That means the death of Microsoft if we do that. So when he left, I always thought I was gonna leave first before he left. But he left in 2014, right? And as soon as he left, of this whole movement happened of getting the new CEO for the company. And that's how, they started seeing, they saw like, I don't know, 30 people that were supposed to replace him. Hard thing, because Vollmer was a an institution outside and inside the company. And there was a lot of different candidates from the outside and from the inside, but I think it's amazing how the company ended up picking up someone that has, again, created this wave of success that started in 2014 with this big bet on cloud, Azure, and all those things, right? So again, another example of how the company, I don't know if by luck or something, managed to get the company culture to be able to make that change successfully, which is incredible. I mean, so talking about Microsoft, I was so busy in my days with Microsoft. I'm not going to give credit that I was smart enough, but I was so busy that I never sold a single share of the company. And that was one of the best decisions I made on, I don't know if it was on purpose, but I'm so glad I didn't, because I was able to understand that what's happening now is really the beginning of the opportunity for everybody. I think we're really at the early stages of what the big jump is going to happen. Recently, as you know, the company announced here an investment of $300 million in a data center in South Africa. It's an example of the expansion that is happening around the world on capacity, where the company is going to take things to the next level, really to provide that opportunity. So, as I said, now I'm on purpose not selling the stock, because I still believe that has a lot of upside opportunity to succeed. So, great time. It's a great time, I think, to invest in the company. Now I'm as a shareholder, but to be a part of that business, being a partner of Microsoft, I think this is a very big opportunity to tap on those investments and again take your business to the next level.
So Satya led the cloud-first approach.
Yep.
Okay, and he really transformed the mindset of Microsoft from being very proprietary, ownership first. We want to make the rules. We will lock you into X, Y, and Z. From that style and culture into something a lot more open, a lot more embracive of open source, other technologies, becoming an instrumental part of GitHub.
Yep.
So all of these fundamental changes were brought by Satya that obviously changed the business and changed how partners partner with Microsoft.
Yep.
Now we're seeing within Satya's leadership another massive change that's occurring, which is that evolution but the evolution from cloud to the next big thing. What do you think partners should be thinking about in order to manage this next transition?
Well, Satya, the first very big step that he took within virtually 3 months was to open basically Office to the open source community and allow the product to, so kind of the thing Volmer didn't want to do, right?
Yeah.
He did, and the stock was floating on $30 for many years, and as soon as we took that and then did those steps, just skyrocketed. But going back to opportunity for partners, if I can use a little bit of taxonomy, this whole thing that is happening is very different to what has happened in the past, because more than ever, this business, at least at the big technology companies, is depending on big investment in infrastructure. So there is not going to be a lot of companies that are going to be able to create the infrastructure to take to the next level the skyrocketing demand that is happening with things like Azure. At this point, you probably heard, it's not an issue of Azure not growing. The problem and the constraint right now is infrastructure for us. That's why we're investing here and in other places, because huge demand, we expect to keep having huge demand on Azure and all related cloud technologies for many years to come. So that first part of the taxonomy is that infrastructure. You rest assured Microsoft will continue to invest in this thing. A lot of questions about it is, are we investing too much? But maybe, but I think it's inevitable. And fewer companies, it would be really the Amazons, Googles, and Microsoft of the world that are going to be doing this. OpenAI now is also investing tremendously in infrastructure. The second part of the taxonomy, right on top of it, is what we have called platform for a long time. And platform now is evolving dramatically towards all these services where things like Azure and other components of AI platforms from Microsoft and others, including OpenAI and others, really provide incredible tools to do agents that then can turn into opportunities for people. And then in that one, I think there is a play for partners, certain type of partners that actually extend some of the products that Microsoft and others are doing in that platform kind of layer. And then the third layer is basically the applications layer, which provides tremendous opportunity for extending many of these services that are already part of the whole taxonomy, the infrastructure and the platform side. Why? Now let's go to what does it really mean in terms of, I mean, I don't know how many of you are in the solutions business versus, I don't know what we need taxonomy right now, but that application layer, I think, is the one that, you know, we hope partners get very focused on. And really, why is this important? I don't want to overly simplify what's going on in terms of trends, but what's driving this explosion? I mean, many of these things you already know, but it's really the unprecedented advances, basically, in computing power, including, you know, this ability to get new computers to do really amazing things.
Yeah.
And then you have an unprecedented amount of data capture happening pretty much in an unprecedented ways in many different scenarios. A lot of the intelligence is moving to the edge, right, where you can create a lot of opportunity, many are at the center, but the reality is that the convergence of this NVIDIA type, you know, capability, or even quantum computing, which Microsoft is also investing heavily in quantum computing, are absolutely essentials of the capability to be able to respond to demand in these areas. So that thing basically is kind of the basis. It's happening. It's happening very fast. This company will continue to invest. But again, the amount of data being collected in the last 5 years is by a factor of 100 more than what was collected from the beginning of humans collecting data. That's the explosion, right? That's happening everywhere, in the watches, everywhere. Now, from the standpoint of how to create experiences, I'll go to the real answer to your question, is where they should focus on this. And is the capability to be able to define a taxonomy of scenarios that respond to customer needs. Some of them are horizontal, the other ones are vertical. But in terms of scenarios and what are the drivers of those scenarios, I would say 3 things matter. Again, I don't want to be overly simplistic, but let me talk a little bit about that. 3 things that are happening conceptually that are very important. Number 1 is personalization. This thing is taken to a level really that has no limits, which also creates a lot of big questions about what's going to happen with my data. Big things, right? But personalization, key part of a scenario, right, is how do you think of how you serve your customers? Personalizing the scenario and personalizing the experience. Number 2 is disintermediation. And the reality is that a lot of intermediaries are being taken out of the business model.
Yeah.
It's inevitable, right? How many of you go to a travel agency anymore? At least I don't. I mean, I just go direct and do my things. And again, not anymore travel agencies exist, right? So again, disintermediation is another very important factor as you think of the taxonomy of how you create your scenarios for your customers. And then the third one is decentralization. Again, power of the use of data is moving to the edge. And it's moving to the edge very rapidly. And as you design and think of scenarios for customers, I think these 3 aspects present unlimited opportunity to create differentiation in other partners. Again, I'm speaking very broadly, but I'm just saying that's the layer, the application of the value layer on top of infrastructure and platform, where continues to be the big opportunity. But this is not going to come easy. This is not going to come easy. You gotta do the homework. You gotta sit down and say, okay, where are my scenarios today? How do I take advantage of these other trends of high computing capability and data analysis and all these other things? So that's the thing that I think is gonna matter. But I say before you do that, the cultural part of asking your company, okay, am I positioned culturally in the right place? And I shared these stories of Microsoft, more to tell you that all companies struggle with this. I'm sure Microsoft is struggling today too, on trying to figure out how do we re-engage the partners in this new way of AI, which presents all these opportunities, but we want to be sure that we help you materialize those opportunities.
Okay, awesome. Folks, just so you know, I will open the floor for questions in about 5 minutes. So I just want to give you a heads up so you can start thinking of 1 or 2 questions if you'd like to ask Orlando yourself. In the meantime, let's tackle another very real challenge that many partners are facing locally, and that is that the people situation at Microsoft has changed dramatically over not just the recent few months, but I would say even the last few years. There have been very notable changes in the resourcing model of Microsoft itself. You know, how Microsoft deploys people in the regions. Mm-hmm. So any tips and help and guidance for partners who might be struggling with that right now? Maybe their local point of contact might not be there anymore. Any ideas from your side?
Well, I'm not close enough to Microsoft to talk about the precise structure they have now. What I do know, listening to recent speeches from Satya and others, is that Microsoft continues to, feel it's deeply important to continue to engage partners in a very direct way. So I would say a couple of things. Number one, I think people like you that had the opportunity to work at Microsoft, in my view, is a blessing, because in a way you turn into a bridge that can reach out back to the structure to be able to help partners, but that should not be the model, right?
Yeah.
I think Microsoft will need to start enabling the capabilities of AI itself in the way they engage partners. And I think that's the way I would probably suggest you, not only with Microsoft but others, is the capability of being able to understand knowledge from these companies, not depending on a human. I'm not with this. I'm not saying that Microsoft's going to take away all the resources, because I don't know. But I'm just saying I know many of these companies are moving to create infrastructures that allow a lot of the ecosystem of partners to be able to get, access to certain tools and information. Do you have a strategy inside on how do you do that? Not only for Microsoft for every. If I were a CEO of a company that works for Microsoft and others, I would be all over it in terms of really understanding what they are offering as tools to be able to get access to all the tools they have. And again, they have to figure out that still a human has to be involved in some cases. But pretending that we're gonna go back to have all that amount of people, I don't think that's gonna happen. But I would say that's important. And I'm now looking from afar, a little bit from the company, but I'll tell you, I try to keep myself aware of what's going on in the industry, and I'm just blown away by the capability to be able to, through AI and ChatGPT and Pilot, to be able to get access of knowledge in an amazing way very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's going to be a combination of still nurturing those relationships. I hope Microsoft having a one-on-one relationship, because they cannot afford it. But I think they're still doing partner meetings and all these things that are very important on engaging the ecosystem, but also creating amazing opportunities through AI to be able to provide the resources to the whole ecosystem in a way that they don't have to depend on receiving a call from somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Or someone that is going to come and resolve the issue. Still, the escalation issues, when you have a deep technical problem, I'm sure they're going to have in place. Yeah. But I would say, when you think about the AI opportunity, think deeply, not only of creating your own value to customers, but how to create your own capability internally to manage and train people, get knowledge, and engage with these companies in a more automated way that still provides a lot of relevance to you.
Yeah, and I think that this shift in resourcing definitely shows the importance of the partner and the value chain. Like the dependence on the partner is greater than ever.
Oh, that's not going to go away. I think Microsoft has been very, very clear that without the partner ecosystem, they will be in trouble. So, I don't know. I don't think we need another suicidal moment like the one I described before for Microsoft to react. But I would say, we should be very. I mean, I have sent emails to Satya saying, "Listen, I think you guys don't get this, or you don't get that," and I think people should be more proactive in really providing feedback to these companies, Microsoft or other companies that actually need to react and should really provide the capabilities for you to be able to move your business forward.
Awesome. All right, so over to you folks. Does anyone here have a question for Orlando? We have a question here. Steph will help. We're sharing a microphone, unfortunately.
Just want to get just an overall opinion on the sort of AI revolution from a human point of view. So, the experience around AI in terms of just from a personal point of